Welcome to Ask Psych Sessions, where we ask some of the best teachers in psychology questions from you, our audience. If you would like to send in a question or an idea for a conversation, please visit bit.ly/AskPsychSessions. That's bit.ly/AskPsychSessions, all lowercase, no spaces. And here's our next question. I am here with Dr. Bob DuBois from the University of Tennessee Knoxville, and you might know Dr. Bob from Twitter or other places. I know Twitter is that the main place where you share ideas, Bob?
Well, actually, I have my Twitter feed, which is PsychoBobLeG, basically psychology with Bob in the middle. And then I also do have some Facebook sites. I have one for all of my classes. And then I also have one that I call the Lifelong Learning Book Club, where faculty and folks from around the country can discuss current books related to teaching and learning.
Great. And you're also blogging quite regularly. And do you have a site set up through your institution where you're putting that, or a Google document, or how do you do that?
When I blog, I typically blog in the Novice Professor blog, which is run by Dr. Sierra Kidder.
That's right. Okay, perfect. Well, she is actually also one of our pros on this Ask Psych Sessions special edition for new online faculty, and that's why I am talking to you today, because I know that you have a lot of thoughts and a lot of experiences with online teaching and helping faculty get up to speed on online teaching. And so one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is, how do you see online teaching, particularly for folks who haven't done it before? I remember when I first started online teaching, I thought, well, I just move your face-to-face class online. It's easy. Seems like it's not as easy as we thought. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so when I think of quality teaching, I really think that there are two major components. You gotta know how to design learning experiences, and I think the vast majority of instructors of psychology around the country, they know how to do that well. But then I think you also have to be really good at delivering. And for most of us, we focus a little bit on delivery, but probably know we could improve our in-class delivery. But when we get online, I think it's that delivery component, which I like to consider learning facilitation, that becomes absolutely critical. And I think you really see that yourself if you ever take a course online, because it can seem very much like a correspondence course. And if you aren't able to build a community and get people engaged and have them kind of see this community develop right away, I like to think of it as get students and everyone on the learning train. Once you leave the station, you can start really realizing quickly why the retention numbers can be far lower online than on campus. So that facilitation aspect is what I like to emphasize.
So I've seen you use this word facilitating learning instead of teaching or whatever the other words you could use to describe it. How are you approaching a class in terms of facilitating? And maybe we can even get into some of your tips for creating engaging online learning environments. But maybe just speak about this word facilitation a little bit more.
Absolutely. I do a lot of presentations on trying to transform what I think of as an instructor to a learning facilitator. And by the way, I also think of students as opposed to learners too. And ultimately, I think the best success occurs when you have learners, which basically are students that now understand how to learn, how to stay motivated, how to be productive, and are willing to invest the time, the effort, the strategies, and help-seeking requirements that are necessary to be successful. But when I think of a learning facilitator, what I think of is, first of all, someone that knows how to design quality instruction. So you know how to target the learning outcomes, use a backwards design. You really understand how to align your outcomes with the learning activities, the learning assessments, the learning interactions. But then when I think about teaching effectively, I think that delivery component is absolutely critical. And I see it as, first of all, we have to ally with our students. We have to join with them. They have to trust us. They have to believe that ultimately, if they work with us, if they work through the assignments that we carefully designed, that they're truly going to learn and that they can be successful. We have to motivate them, which means that we have to care about their success and they have to believe that we do in order for them to truly invest the energy and want to be a learner. And then finally, I think we have to model how to behave, how to learn, and kind of that lifelong learning attitude when we teach. And so those are the things that I think become readily apparent online, because you could literally just drop your content online and only appear once or twice a week in a web conference. And essentially, to the students, you really aren't in a course anymore. You're in a work by yourself, all alone kind of environment. And that really is not comfortable for a lot of our students, particularly students that didn't choose to do online, because once students get comfortable with online, a lot of them choose it because they become learners themselves and they realize they don't necessarily have to rely solely on the instructor for guidance. But I think that once you take a person who's in an on-campus class and you force them into an online environment, we now have a responsibility to meet them where they're at, orient them to how to actually be a successful, motivated learner online, and then essentially be there far more often than we probably are when we teach an on-campus course.
Interesting. So it sounds like engagement is a major component of facilitating learning in an online environment. Now, if folks are teaching online for the first time, because some of us are being asked to do this, in order to give our students a good learning experience, and like, let's not hold ourselves to too high of a bar. If we just get thrown into it, it's really it's survival and trying to obviously keep students centered. But if we are trying to get this engagement from students, how do you suggest we might do that? Maybe just a couple thoughts for those of us who haven't done this before.
Well, I think the first thing is to communicate right away. Communicate openly and communicate that the first priority in this juncture right now is their health, their well-being, and that they feel comfortable that we're going to get through this together, that they're going to learn, we're going to make this work, and ultimately, if they're willing to put in the effort, if they're willing to ask for your help, if they're willing to adjust strategies along the way, as certainly we're going to have to be willing to do too, then everything's going to be fine and they're going to be successful. And so I would start by sending a carefully constructed, sincere message to your students to make sure that they know that you're going to do everything possible to be flexible, to work with them, to essentially help make sure that the transition is as smooth as possible, that you understand the priorities, you understand that this, especially if you've been teaching an on-campus course, that we're not just going to meet on the times that we normally meet online, but things are going to have to change in order to account for all of the possible kinds of things that could be going on over the next few weeks. And so ultimately communication and being available to be responsive. So if you're not used to responding to student emails, student communications within, I'd say, at least 24 hours, you're going to start seeing some disengagement and some frustration, because you got to think from the student's perspective. And again, if you've ever taken an online course, you kind of know what it's like to be in the midst of working and have a question and not understand something, and then have an instructor kind of disappear for 2, 3, 4 days at a time before you get a response.
That's really helpful, Bob. I love how you are talking about the experience of being in an online course. That changed everything for me when I was in an online course. And I realized the things that I wanted to do and the things that I didn't want to do when I was in the position of teaching it. So thanks so much for that. And I do agree with you that just transparency and clear communication, quick communication can do wonders for creating quick engagement with students. I know that you use a couple tools in your classroom. For those of us who are looking forward, I'm on quarters, and we've just been told that we're going to need to go to online for at least the first 4 weeks of the quarter, if not the entire quarter. Do you have any tools that you think facilitate learning really well in your classrooms?
Yeah, and these are tools that do require an investment, but I think everyone could quickly learn them and start using them. And I get a lot of positive comments at the end of the semester or end of the quarter about these tools. So the first one is a communication tool. I really love Remind, Remind. It's a free tool. It was in the past used exclusively in K-12, but now it's used by a lot of higher ed educators. And what it allows me to do is essentially get ready access to students. If they download the Remind app, or if they just join via a text, Remind, and join my class, I now have the ability to send them very quick text messages. And those text messages can be scheduled. I can include attachments with those messages, and they have the ability to also respond to me very quickly. And what I find is that gives students comfort that they can reach you. And one of the things that I think we all discover fairly quickly, and I think folks that are teaching online are going to discover and get maybe a little more frustrated about, is sometimes our students don't check their email. I think sometimes we don't even check our email. But we do stare at our phone quite a lot. And so if you can get to students' smartphones and they can see that they can get to you, I think that provides a kind of relief to some of the anxiety, and it helps you answer questions or see problems quickly. So, for example, in this transition, you may not realize that you don't have a setting right on an assignment or something else, and things aren't working. And students might not email you or let you know on a timely basis. But if you've got Remind, you can get that message, you can quickly make that correction and make sure that everyone stays engaged and that things are flowing smoothly. You can also reach out to those students that you're struggling to reach out to make sure that they're okay and to help them get on course. So that's one tool, Remind. Now, there's another tool that I really like called Flipgrid. And I've been using Flipgrid now for a number of years. And what I like about it is it essentially takes care of one of the biggest problems that people complain about with online courses, and that's the quality of online discussions. I have done discussions in just about every way you possibly can, including directing the discussions myself and writing a variety of discussion questions, having students prepare blogs. But when you use Flipgrid, it really opens the door to engagement because it allows students to communicate in as close to a face-to-face way as you possibly can get. Students can post audio-visual discussion posts, and ultimately everyone can reply to those posts. You can reply to those posts. You can apply a rubric to it, and I kind of switch things up, and I want to emphasize critical thinking. I want to emphasize communication skills. So I have a unique assignment that requires students to start conversations throughout the semester and then learn how to facilitate and move those conversations deeper and forward. And Flipgrid really works well. And at a minimum, if you're thinking about just being good enough and kind of getting the community going on a brand new course that's online and that's not the student's choice, I would encourage to at least use Flipgrid as a good introduction forum tool and as part of your checklist for the orientation assignments that you have at the start of the course to really get students on the learning train.
Hey, Bob, I really like what you said just now, which is whatever technology, whatever tools, whatever assignments you are going to be using throughout your term, uh, in that introductory week, make sure that students have exposure to those before you start kind of upping the ante by mid or high stakes assignments. Make sure that they know what they're doing and they can use the tool effectively.
Yeah, and in fact, probably one of the things that I think a lot of instructors are going to be super happy about after this crisis is that you're going to learn a lot about what it's like from the student perspective to try to communicate clarity in instructions and assignments, because we could be in front of students and they can ask questions and kind of clarify things, but when things are online, it's essential that all of your instructions in the LMS are very clear, and a lot of times you have to be extraordinarily explicit, telling students what to click, maybe showing images of what things are going to look like. And keep in mind that students might have different devices. Some are going to be probably having to use their phone in order to access data. Some are going to have to borrow a laptop. Some are going to the library. Not all of our students have the resources necessary to be an online learner, even in the midst of this crisis.
Well, Bob, I know that you have probably looked through a lot of different technology tools. You've done a lot of different things in your years and years of online teaching experience. And folks, these are Dr. Bob DuBois' recommendations. I want to thank you for taking the time and being here on Ask Psych Sessions for this special edition. And I'll look forward to catching up with you sometime soon.
Excellent. And if folks want to see some more advice, they could go to tiny.utk.edu/online teaching. And I've been posting some of my advice there.
And they can follow you on Twitter. I know you're really active there. So I appreciate your time. Thanks, Dr. Bob.
Thank you very much, Garth.